Hello, my name is Debbie. I'm Owlandgatorstitcher. Welcome to Flosstube number 59. Today is Thursday, September 14th, 2023. This is a video mainly about cross stitch, sometimes what I'm reading and watching as well. I hope that you have had a good couple of weeks. It's been about 2.5 weeks since my last video. And I would like to thank everyone who reached out to me either on the comments on the video or separately through Instagram or other methods to just make sure that I was okay after Hurricane Idalia came through. And we were actually really fortunate here in my county that the storm, it basically turned north further. Well, it turned inland further north than originally anticipated, and not by that much, maybe 20 miles or so. But it was just enough that as a result, where I live, we only got sort of the outer bands of wind and rain. And quite frankly, we've had thunderstorms that have been a lot worse than that. So, we all got prepared and we were fine. My parents also live in the same town that I do. They lost cable for a couple of days, but electricity, internet, everything was fine with them. I don't know if I would have lost cable or not. We don't have cable. I do know someone else who lives in the town also mentioned that she had lost cable. I do know that in my county, but technically not like a different town in my county, she did lose power for 2 days. So I don't know if it's just that because where her main power source is, whatever. But she did lose it for 2.5 days, which is always very unfortunate, especially since she has a child who's like a little over a year. So never good when, it's bad enough as adults when we're uncomfortable. When your baby is uncomfortable, it's just horrible. But everyone is fine with that. But my heart does go out to the people in towns like Perry and Cedar Key, in Florida, who got a lot of the brunt of the storm when it made landfall. So once again, thank you to everyone who expressed their concern. On a little bit about personal stuff. So I have started volunteering with our Friends of the Library. There are groups like this all throughout the United States, which are basically groups that are designed to raise money for either library collections or programs at their library. Obviously, everyone is a little bit different based on what the local libraries provide and need. Mine, basically, our Friends of the Library basically provides funds for programs at the library, and they have a semi-annual book sale, which is the main fundraiser, and that raises, I think the last sale, I think they said they raised $177,000. So they actually, this is a massive book sale. So I'm helping right now with the sorting of the books when people make donations, just making an initial assessment about, does this go to romance or Western, or is it a biography? And if it's biography, does it, should it just be in the general biography, or should it be by subject matter? Those kinds of things. So it's interesting. The only downside is that it is in a warehouse that does not have air conditioning. And I know it's middle of September, but it is Florida and it is still hot. So I've just been drinking a lot of water, and they do have a break room, which is air conditioned, and they have, water and salty snacks and other things just, to help you sort of stay hydrated. Because really most of the volunteers, I'm one of the younger ones because most people are retired folks. And, obviously the older you are, the more susceptible you are to problems with heat exhaustion, things like that. But it's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it. And the other thing, I'm going to see if I can point here. So this is usually my view for my videos these days. And you can see this shelf here, which absolutely used to be a hot mess. Got cleaned up a little bit. I mean, that shelf up there still needs a lot of work. But this one is now much more organized. And what I basically done, I had some really cheap magazine holders that were holding my patterns, and I was very upset. So I got some new ones, moved them over here. And of course, when I looked at all my patterns, I'm like, I want to start pairing them up with fabric that I have. Like, I'm not talking about going out and buying more fabric. I'm resisting that urge right now, but I'm sure at some point, like, that urge will be overcome, and I will start doing that. But right now, I've got a lot of patterns that I have matched up with fabric, and I would like to focus on those. As part of that, I realized that I had a stack of patterns that I know I won't be stitching. And so some of them I do take to retreats when there's a freebie table, but there's also some I would like to share with you. So I have a couple of patterns from Glendon Place that I'd like to share. So general rules apply. Please be 18 years or older because these are physical patterns and I will mail them to your mailing address. So you have to be 18 or older. You have to be willing to provide me your mailing address if I select you. Please do not use the word prize or giveaway in your comments. And please use a keyword somewhere that I will tell you. And I will mail anywhere that the U.S. Postal System will mail to, which I think is now everywhere. I think a lot of the restrictions are gone. The first Glendon Place piece I have. So this is one. So it's called Words Through the Olive Trees, or Winds Through the Olive Trees, excuse me. So it's sort of, I don't want to say Christmassy, but it has that sort of, it is a little bit religious. Let's see if I can put on my glasses and read it to you. It won't fall off my desk. The other says, winds through the olive trees, softly did blow around little Bethlehem long, long ago. So that's, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but that's basically the spirit here. So if you are interested in this one, use the word olive, O-L-I-V-E. And the next piece I have, another Glendon Place. This is from their desserts series. So these are a bunch of, there's, I don't know, 4 or 5 patterns with mandalas on them. This one is called Strawberry Shortcake. So if you are interested in this, please use the word strawberry, S-T-R-A-W-B-E-R-R-Y. I hope I spelled that correctly, but strawberry, I think. So in this one, they actually do have it charted with silks, but obviously you could just go in your into your stash and use whatever colors you wanted. There's only, I think, about 6 colors that are used in this pattern. So those are my giveaways. And I also would like to, I've been derelict in doing this. I missed to do this on my last video, but I'd like to give a big thanks to Amanda, Lucky Chance Stitcher. She gave me a shout out on Instagram about my video. So thank you so much for that. It's always nice when someone recognizes you. And if any of you came here because of her, welcome. I hope that you like what you see and that you will stick around. Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and start showing you some stitching because it's been 7 minutes now. I did have a new start. So this is Wizard of Oz Stained Glass 3 by, it's charted by Stitches So Beautiful. And this is based on artwork from the Sphinx Design Studio. So this is a pretty large full coverage with a stained glass look with the Wizard of Oz. And I decided to start this. I started this, I believe, on Labor Day here in the United States because Beth from the Steadfast Stitcher is hosting a SAL called Stitches So Beautiful SAL, and so is spelled S-E-W. And we had a Zoom on Labor Day, and it was really great because the designer Valerie behind Stitches So Beautiful joined us, and it was just really interesting to listen to her. Not so much talk about the design process, but talk about reaching out to artists and getting information. How do you chart things, or how do you reach out to artists and get licenses? And everything is a little bit different. And I learned things like if you have apparently AI art cannot be copyrighted, but nonetheless, it's not that someone didn't just plug in do Wizard of Oz, click, there's a lot of artistic expression that goes in, even if you are using AI. And how do you compensate someone for that time? Because they can't copyright their work. And, she wants to acknowledge artists. And so it was just very interesting listening to her. And then some people will say, hey, she just reaches out to artists. And some of them say, thank you, I'm not interested. And that's fine. One person was actually really nasty to her, which is just not necessary. I said, why would I have you do it? Just tell me how to do it and I'll do it myself. And it's like, no, whatever. So, but anyhow, here's where I am. So I started in the upper left-hand corner, as I often do. So a little bit of a frame and then obviously a piece of glass. So really not much here to show. I'm doing this on a 22 count, which is right now my preferred method for doing full coverages. And so I do obviously 1/1 full cross with 1 strand. So that is Wizard of Oz Stained Glass 3. Oops, sorry about that noise. Okay, so now a couple. I am participating in a couple different challenges this month. One is in Whip Warriors, and it's a full coverage called Back to School, and it's to get a 1,200 stitches into 12 full coverage projects, and it's sort of meant to match the U.S. school system, although there are 13 years because everyone goes to kindergarten, and then we start first grade and we end at 12th grade. So they're actually 13 years, but we're only doing 12 because, apparently they don't want you to have to learn to count until you're like 6 or 7 as opposed to 5 or 6 in kindergarten, but I digress. Anyhow, so I'm doing that, and there's an additional bonus if you start with your oldest project and move through and up, and so that you're, to your newest or newer ones. So I am, because I have to be, nothing like a good challenge. I have to follow the rules, and I'll show you what I've done so far, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And then the other challenge, which I'm I am participating every day, although I'm being kind to myself, is I am participating in Semi-Sane Stitchers, and they have what they call Go Stitch, based on Go Fish. And the idea is that she spins a wheel every day, and it has a letter, and there are a few other a few fun things like, wild card or other things. And basically, if you have a whip that starts with that letter, and it has to be the start, it can't be like any word in the title, then you pick a whip that has that, and you work on that for 200 stitches. Or if you don't have it, you say Go Stitch, and it's 400 stitches. To be honest, I played Go Fish a ton when I was a kid. I honestly don't remember the rules. But anyhow, that's the way, and there's different versions of it. I'm doing the easier version because I knew there was no way I could, if you do the harder versions and you don't have the letter, it's 800 stitches. And I'm like, yeah, I don't do 800 stitches a day. I mean, maybe I'll hit it, but that's a good day stitching for me. And most days I've less than that. So I'll go through, and if I have some of those, but then I also have my whips that I focus on generally. So one of those is Huckleberry Farm from the Blue Flower. So I pulled this out and worked on it a little bit. I honestly don't remember what made me pull it out when I did. I can't, like, if the letter H was called or if it just, but I'm trying every month to complete a section so that by the end of the calendar year, I will have completed the whole thing. And I broke it down of the remaining parts to 12 sections. I have been really good about doing one of those sections every month. So here is the start on this section. So this section is going to be sort of the vine all the way down. So this is the bottom of the pattern. And so basically what I just did was the vine, and then this is part of the chipmunk because it was the same color. So I finished off that color. So obviously I have all of the, you can see sort of on the top part here what the top of the vine looks like, all of the berries and the leaves and stuff. So there's still quite a bit to go here, but I was happy to hit bottom of it. I knew I had plenty of fabric, but it's nice. And this also does not, the top part curls up over the top, but this part does not go along the bottom here. And it is a very forgiving pattern. So if I miscounted and it's one off this way or that way, it doesn't matter. It's not, it's not like I have a border that has to meet. So that is where I am on Huckleberry Farm. Next piece also that's sort of been a focus piece this year, and I had dreams of getting it done before the Mirabilia retreat next month, which I am going, but finishing it, not even going to get close. At some point it was like, let me finish it. And then it's like, well, I'll finish it except for the beads. Yeah, not happening. But I'm still putting progress into it every month. And that is Portrait of Veronica from Mirabilia. So I am working in the bottom part. So here's where I am. So basically what I did this time was I started filling in here. So I think this big green blob is basically all I did this time. I'm going to be traveling later this month, not to a retreat. And this is actually, I do find this relatively easy to see. It is a 32 count linen, but it's not hand dyed. And so I can actually see the holes pretty well on this, just with my regular reading glasses. So it's a good travel piece for me to take, and it's not, a huge number of colors. So I obviously won't take the beads or anything like that, but I'll just take a few colors and start to work up here. So that will be nice. And this is one of I can't remember why I initially pulled it out this month, but it will be for, I know that maybe there was a P drawn and I did 200 stitches and a P was drawn again. And I said, I'm just going to put off those stitches until I start traveling with it. So next piece I'm working on, this is called Autumn Blessing. And I am doing a cropped version. So I'm not doing like the little prayer in here. I'm just doing this top thing here. I love this little motif and the little animals and stuff. So this I am doing on an 18 count Aida. It is a printed fabric. So you can see it's beautiful printed on this side and then white on this side. So here's what the whole thing looks like. And this got pulled out because A was called, and so Autumn Blessing. And so basically I put stitches. So now this blob, it used to be kind of a blob, and now you can kind of see it's a squirrel. This is from Cross Stitch and Country Crafts from the 1990s. So there is a lot of back stitching. So still a couple more little colors I have left to go in the squirrel, and then a boatload of back stitching in there. But it was good to have a chance to pull this out. I hadn't worked on this for quite a while. Okay, and the next project is another sal that I am doing with Beth the Steadfast Stitcher, and it is Brownfish Owl by Kathy Barrick. And so I have, this is not, although this is done sort of as an old style sampler, you can see stitched by Margaret Emery, whatever date. It's not a reproduction sampler. So I have made a decision that I am going to do this in honor of my grandmother who loved birds. And this I actually worked, I had worked on it earlier in the month, but I also worked on this yesterday because B was called, and so for Brownfish Owl. So what I did since the last, so that's the whole thing. And then what I did since the last time I showed this to you. So I put in a fish here. This was not, there are fish on the pattern. It was not charted up here. This had like an actual date. I had already stitched in my grandmother's date of, or year of birth and death, but there was a gap. So I just put one of the fish there. I also, this was supposed to be 2 lines of text, and I have shrunk it down to 1. I have charted my grandmother's name, but I haven't stitched it. And part of the reason why I haven't stitched it is I am concerned that, sorry, it's getting tired and holding up. I am concerned with the color that I'm supposed to do it in. And so I'm just wondering, like, I don't, the color, it's sort of, this is a nice dark green here, and the color itself is a lighter green, and it's my grandmother's name, and so I don't want it just to sort of fade away. This is a piece in honor of her, so I'm just going to stitch a little bit more and see what color is appropriate to put in there. So anyhow, so what I've also done, just sort of extended the border down and done a little bit more here, and started working on this berry basket here. And so love this piece. This is 32 count scroll from Stitch Me. It was a fabric of the month. I am using the called for MPI silks on this. And I realized I was like stitching yesterday. I'm like, oh, I'm still missing some of the colors because I had gone to the Needlework store in my town, which does carry MPI. And so I bought a bunch from her, but she didn't have every color. So I need to go figure out what I'm missing and go find another source for them. Okay, the next piece that I worked on was first time I worked on it this year, and it is Christmas cat. So this cute little cat hanging out on a wreath, which is, cats like to get into all sorts of trouble. So this is from an issue of the World of Cross Stitching. And it's a couple years old. I want to say December 2019 or 2020, around then. And here is, I'm sorry, you've got a really bad reflection here today for some reason. So this is just a light blue Aida, probably Charles Craft. It was definitely a big box store tube of fabric. So what I worked on this time was basically all of this like dark brown color, and came down a little bit here on this as well. He kind of looks like an alien cat, which he's not. He's just got a very round head. But when I pull this out next time, I will do some of the pinky colors because these are actually the ears here. So that will give a little bit more structure as well as little toe beans. which, there's probably only about 10 stitches in each of the pinks. It's not that much, but I kind of don't like alien cat. I want it to look like a real cat. I mean, not that this looks like a real cat. Most cats' heads are not that round, but I don't like the alien look to it. So next piece I worked on, this is from Tiny Modernist. This is a Haunted Mansion. I am doing this as a stitch along with a group of friends. And so there are 9 of us participating. And so we all had to build the frame of the house. And then we each did and then it's getting mailed around, and each of us either do a room or the trees on either side or the part at the bottom. So I did this, that's the room I did. So I did this one. And it's been great because you can do them in any order that you want. No one is, there's no set order of how you do it. And this is probably the 5th or 6th one I've gotten, and I haven't had to do any repeats so far. I think probably towards the end I will have to repeat something. That's okay. None of us seem to be bothered that if we have to do the same thing twice. But it's been fun. So have that feeling of like you're stitching on the whole pattern, even though you get to do different, certainly different fabrics. Not every, a lot of the pattern calls for DMC, and most people have had DMC. Some people said, hey, if you want to do some glow in the dark or whatever, the pieces the sections I worked who had the glow in dark threads, I ended up not having either a skeleton or a ghost, which is what you would use the glow in the dark for. So anyhow, this is a really cute little room. 2 skeletons sitting there with a pumpkin. So a lot of fun. Really, really enjoying doing that. And we're trying to figure out what our we most of us have indicated that we want to continue. So then we need to figure out what our next project is. This one just worked out really nicely to divide up amongst 9. So it's been a lot of fun. And thank you again to the person who organized it. I really, really appreciate it. It's been great it's my first round robin that I've ever done. And it's been a lot of fun to either meet or work with stitchers that I already knew to create this project. So now I'm going to move into my full coverages that I have worked on for the Back to School Whip Warriors event. So again, 1,200 stitches into each project. You can do them in any order, and Carla, the organizer, has said, she's, if you have, one, you don't have to do them in any order. That's just kind of the bonus if you want to do that. And then secondly, if you have one that you just don't want to work on for whatever reason, just skip it and move to the next one. It's not a big deal. I'm not going to hit 12. I know that. But I still, my attitude is that I set goals for all my projects, and unless I've hit the goal, I want to keep working on that project until I do. And so none of my older whips have hit my goals yet. So none of my older full coverages, I have had some finishes on my older ones. But so anyhow, this is my oldest project overall. This is Old World Map, charted by Artisy. So this one I actually started in the upper right-hand corner. And I put in my 1,200 stitches. And this one I do have on Pattern Keeper, so it went relatively quickly. So here's where I am now. So I am very happy to say that I am entirely finished now with the Arctic Circle and all of this in here. And so while there are some areas it's not that this is a line, there are some, ninja stitches hiding out in here, and there may even be in this ring here. But internally on the globe, it is done. So I'm very excited about that. I don't want to say I was getting tired of working on it, but it just felt like it was going on forever. So it was very exciting to finish that. So I finished everything in there, worked on this sort of ribbon piece up here, started filling things in here, did a lot here. I'm like, what the heck is that? And I think it's a lot like this over here, which is just sort of some foliage, for lack of a better word. And then obviously I will start working in over here, and that's where I get into a lot of the figures and the scenes around the globe. So that is Old World Map. Oops. And then the next piece that I have to my second oldest whip is Cats in the Toy Box by Heaven Earth Designs. If you've seen any of my videos, this is my focus piece. And I didn't, obviously I didn't just do 1,200 stitches and stop. I work on this basically every evening. And so got a lot of work into this basket. Still have to do his head. You can sort of see it here, but some of this is Kreinik in here. So did a lot of the Kreinik stitches here. Had a little, the first time I pulled this out after I moved the Q-snap, and this is the last move of the Q-snap. Things were not matching up here. Like there was a counting error, and when I finally figured out, I have 3 little red stitches that were in the wrong place, and I was counting off of them. Once I figured out what that, I hadn't put in a huge amount of stitches. It just took me a while to figure out why I had a mistake, and once I figured out why I had the mistake, I frogged what I had done, but then just those 3 stitches, I'm like, you're going away. I'll put you back in later when I get everything, whatever. So basically what I've been doing with this, I thought about, let's pick the predominant color, stitch all of that, and stitches remaining on Pattern Keeper. You can see, you can rank order them in terms of number of stitches remaining. And then I thought, I'm going to end up towards the end with probably like 300 stitches, and there's going to be, 5 stitches of this color, 8 of this color, and I thought that will drive me crazy. And you all have heard me. I love the way confetti makes a pattern look, but when you're doing nothing but confetti and pulling out and doing a few stitches and having to move on the other color, it does get a little bit tedious. So what I've decided is every time I pick this up, I go to the color that has the fewest number of stitches, and I do those. And so I've been color completing a lot. So like yesterday, I don't remember which color it was, but I did like some of these yellow stitches here. And again, we're talking 5 or 6 stitches. So, it's done quickly. And then I go and say what color has the most remaining. And so like yesterday, that color was black. And so I now have fewer than 100 stitches of black. But when I pick this up tonight, I will do mine now. I think I'm up to like 10 or 11 stitches on my lowest color. I will do that color. And then I will go, what is the next highest color? And that just sort of allows me to, lets me enjoy the project and not get frustrated like at the very end where I'm like, I just want to be done and I have 100 stitches and I can't, how long is this going to take me? I think it will help me when I bring this project into the final conclusion. And my goal is now to finish it next month. I originally had wanted to get it done at the end of the year, but as I suspected, once I could see the finish line, I'm like, I'm going to get this one done. I love it. I'm so excited about it. So it was very easy to get my 1,200 stitches in this, and I do continue to work on it throughout the month. Tends to be in the evening. So that is Cats in the Toy Box. Okay. My next oldest, and so those are my 2 oldest full coverage, but they're also my 2 oldest projects. And then Portrait of Veronica is actually my next project after that. And then, so these are all with the one Old World Map I started in 2019. The rest of these I started in 2020. And that was before I had Pattern Keeper, so it didn't matter to me whether I had purchased it by PDF or paper pattern. I was printing out the PDFs and doing them that way. And then once I found Pattern Keeper, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do any more paper patterns. But for whatever reason, obviously if I started something, I liked it, I want to keep going with it. But part of the reason why I don't work on these much is that because they're paper patterns and they do take more time. Y'all have heard me talk and complain about this enough. So I'm working on Evening Romance. This is, charted by Artisy. Artwork is by Mark Keithley. It's a beautiful evening scene. And here is where this is. So this is basically one full page, and then it's probably like 12 stitches across column, let's put it that way. So I have been working on this, put in my 1,200 stitches, and made really great progress. I don't know exactly how much I have left to do, maybe another 1,000 stitches or so. That's what I tell myself. But really enjoying the way this whole thing is looking. I will unfold it so you can see everything. There we go. Love the way this one is looking with the light coming through the trees. It's amazing. It's just because it's a paper pattern and confetti, it just takes a while. And then my next one is Mother of Dragons, and this is charted by Pain Free Crafts and artwork by Alexandra Bach. This is retired from Pain Free Crafts, but she I think Alexandra Bach now has some through Heaven and Earth Designs, but when I purchased it, and I got it from Pain Free Crafts, and I just made a decision on this one. I had been working over here, and it was just nothing was really coming out, so I wanted to start to see something. So my goal was to go down and get this like dragon head done, and it took me a while to even figure out where the dragon head was, to be honest. But now I think I'm starting finally to see it. So I did a little bit here. So, obviously this is the bottom of the pages above. And I start to just a little bit see. So this is like the neck of the dragon, I think, coming here, like the mouth, and then this will be the fire and stuff. Very confetti heavy, which I knew that going in that it was going to be confetti heavy, but I really wanted to see the detail on this pattern. Because the only detail that had come out was sort of up here, which I think this is sort of stonework. And it just, looking at it in person, it doesn't look that good. And so I wanted to see, like, what is this going to look like down here? So this was 1,200 stitches and a lot of confetti. And so it took me quite a while to get that done, which was fine. And I'm happy that I can start to see it sort of emerging with the black, and I don't know what you want to call it. I'm not that familiar with dragon anatomy, but the spines, the spininess, the scales, I don't know what it is, but you can start to see that with the dragon's head starting to come in. So glad I made some progress on that. And that's why I love these events, is that sometimes it makes me pull out things that for whatever reason they're not at my top of the list to do, but I do enjoy them, and so that's why I enjoy it. So I'm going to continue splitting my time between those two events while trying to fulfill other prompts in other games. So I actually have one already lined up. Green Dancer, I'm not going to pull. It's on my stand already, so I didn't want to pull it off. I only got about 100 stitches into it yesterday, so my next video I will show it to you. So those are all of my projects I have to show. My plans are just to continue with these games until the end of the month, and I hope to come back and show you what I worked on at the end of September. So that is all of the stitching I have to show you, but I do have some stash acquisitions if you'd like to stick around. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that. So the first thing I have to show you was Stitchy Kindness. Judy, who is an Aussie in a Kiwi world, I believe that is her Flosstube channel. She is an Australian who lives in New Zealand. So she was doing a giveaway, and so I was really, really fortunate to win. And so she had some mirabilias that she was giving away, and so this is one I won called Fairy Tales. Absolutely beautiful. So thank you so much, Judy. And then she included also Tim Tams. So I haven't opened this, just got here yesterday, so I haven't opened these yet. But when I have my tea this afternoon, I'll have a Tim Tam with it. I have had Tim Tams before. I visited both Australia and New Zealand. And when I looked at the customs form, she wrote down biscuits, what I would call cookie. So I have had them before. They are very good, and they're very, a very down under Aussie and Kiwi biscuit or cookie. Let's put it that way. And these are called original, so they're sort of the chocolate flavors, but they do come in all sorts of flavors. I've seen people with lots. So anyhow, and then I went on a quest. I showed you my last video that I started Chatelaine and the never-ending hunt for Gloriana. There's 5 different Glorianas in that Chatelaine. And I was like, okay, I need to get serious. And so I did sort of hunt around on various websites to see where I could find it. And Hollis Hands Creates had two of the colors. And then shortly after that, I got a notification from 123 Stitch that they have one of the colors. So I think I mentioned that in my last video, but they all had come in. So here are the colors that I had. So I've got now 3 of the 5. So I'm really excited about that. So I was very happy that Hollis Hand Creates had it. Unfortunately, she didn't seem to have like the two of the other colors that I'm looking for, it's not that she didn't like that they were out of stock. It's like it looks like she doesn't sell them at all. And 123 Stitch, it's sort of a gamble about whether or not, even when they tell you if it's there, whether or not you can get in quick enough to actually order it, because that happened before with a lot of mine. So I'm still on the hunt for 2 more colors, and I will keep on looking for them. It's not like I'm going to finish that chatelaine anytime soon. I have years to figure it out. But of course, when I bought those threads, I wasn't going to let them travel alone. So one of the pieces was a saltwater scrapbook. So I have these. This was a collaboration between Lindy Stitches and the Blue Flower. So that's what the whole thing looks like on the back if you do the whole thing. Obviously, you can put the blocks in whatever order you want. So I had the version with the Blue Flower, and so now I got the Lindy Stitches ones. So they're really cute. So I also, and then the Stellar J. So I participated in Lindy Stitches Bird Crush Club. I guess it was in 2022, but I joined a month late, so I was missing the Stellar J. So she had that, so I was able to get that. So from Hollis Hands Creates, I got those 2 patterns plus 2 of the flosses. And then when I purchased the item from 123 Stitch, wasn't going to let travel thrown. I got some threads, whatever. I'm not going to show those to you, but I then got it's like a plastic bag inside a plastic bag. So I'll at least remove one. This was on my wish list, and this is Air Goddess from Joan Elliott. She has some beautiful, I love her goddesses. I am working on Water Goddess. I'm drawn to a lot of blues, let's face it. So there's that one. And then I still had, from my birthday in August, I had a gift certificate from Amazon, and I got the magazine collector. I'm so proud that I finally did this. And the only reason why I didn't do it is for what magazine holders are, they're ridiculously expensive. They're a couple pieces of plastic. Why are they so expensive? I don't know. It's why I bought the cheap ones, and then those were horribly cheap. So I bought ones that were sturdier, but for what they are, like, no. It's like, anyhow. So bought a few, things that I've been, sort of things like nothing that I needed from Amazon, but things that I wanted from Amazon. And so I still had a little bit left on my gift card. So I thought, I'm going to treat myself, and I got this Dimensions Gold kit. And it is Alan Maley's Gracious Era. And I think what I actually, my family does a lot of gift cards. And so I think I had gotten a gift card at last year for the holidays and tried to order this. And I think it was because it was a holiday period, the seller just, like, they weren't mailing it. And, 3 weeks later, I'm like, I'm done. And so I canceled it. And because it hadn't been mailed or anything, like, there was no issue. Like, Amazon clearly had record that it was never mailed. And, they kept sending things like, well, this hasn't been mailed yet. You can cancel it if you want. And, and I try to be patient with vendors, but at a certain point, it's like, I just said, I'm going to, whatever I did, I canceled it and bought other stuff that I probably didn't need. But I was happy to get this one. I've always loved the scene, this sort of Victorian era winter scene. No idea when I'm going to start any of these. My next start, and I saw a message come in from Angie right before I started the video, and I haven't had a chance to really read it yet. I am going to start Queen of Freedom as a stitch along with someone who I met at a retreat, who I know now watches this video. So we got to coordinate when we're going to work on the dates. So we'll get back. That may be my last decent sized start between now and the end of the year. I'm at 69 projects right now. That's a lot. I will have a couple big finishes, but I don't want to say I don't do smalls, because I do have some smalls, but what attracts me are like these big, magnificent projects, and I love them, but they have more stitches and they need more time. And so as a result, I have, so to have 70, like if you have 70 ornaments, not that it's not a lot, but it's, the number of stitches you have remaining isn't that huge versus, when you've got Hades and other things. So anyhow, that is all I have to say about the stitching. I have just a little bit about what I've been reading and watching. So the book that I recommend to you this time is actually an older book, and I'm sure all of you have heard of it. It's by Fanny Flagg, Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe. I've read a ton of her books and love her writing. But I had never actually read this one, and part of it was because I had seen the movie, loved the movie, but it never, I'm like, oh, well, I know what's going to happen, and because I've seen the movie so many times. But I'd heard that there was enough difference between the movie and the book that it is worth reading the book. The relationship between the two lead female characters is enough that it's their relationship, which is very accepted in the book. It's clear that they're a couple in the book. In the movie, it's a little bit less clear. Like they're clearly very good friends, but beyond that, it's not. It's not. And then also, like, I never got it really in the movie what the relationship was. Jessica Tandy's character, whose character's name I've now forgotten, Mrs. Threadgood. Her relationship to the family and why she knew so much about them, and it's much clearer in the book. But it's one of those that you sort of sit back, and initially the chapters are very short, and so sometimes it's a bit jarring because you're going back and forth between sort of present day and the past, and then there's some woman who writes a newsletter, and so you just sort of have all these different viewpoints of what's going on. But once you sort of get into the rhythm of the book, it's you feel like you're sitting down with a bunch of friends when you're reading it, and it's really captivating. And so I really recommend that book if you haven't read it yet. And part of the reason that made me want to read it now was that there is a second book that I wanted to read, but I thought I should actually go back and read the book first, this book, before I read the next book in the Whistle. I don't want to say it's a series. It's a follow-on book that she did with a lot of the same characters. So highly recommend that. That was a lot of fun to read. And then what I've been watching, I have to admit that I finally went down that rabbit hole and I binged Bridgerton. So the first 2 seasons I've watched, as well as I've started Queen Charlotte. Haven't finished that yet. A lot of fun. It wasn't what I was necessarily expecting. It's a lot more humorous than I thought it would be. I didn't, I knew the general story about it, but I there's a lot of humor to it, and some serious things as well. And then what I also love is listening to the music, because while it is done with orchestra arrangements, it's a lot of pop songs. And so you'll be listening to something and you'll be like, I know that, but that's not, and then you're like, oh, that's a Taylor Swift song, or that's Beyonce, or whatever. So it's sort of fun. I can imagine if you are someone who's working on the score and being able to take these pop songs and may have with a classical orchestra, it must be a lot of fun to participate in that. So anyhow, that's what I've been reading and watching and stitching. And I hope to be back by the end of September. So until then, everyone, happy stitching. Bye.